Today, we're opening up a rather unsettling collection of case files in this explainer. We're looking at 3 distinct, heavily documented accounts of paranormal encounters that all share one really specific common thread: the isolated, unforgiving highways of Pakistan. We're going to unpack the exact sequences of events, the serious psychological toll, and the strange phenomena reported by the travelers who actually survived them.
Okay, let's dive into this. Picture this scenario for a second. It's the dead of night. You're sound asleep in your room, and you're suddenly jolted awake by the unmistakable sound of running water from your bathroom. So you get up, walk in, and find the tap wide open. Nobody else is there. You figure, hey, it must be a loose valve, right? So you tightly shut it off, go back to bed, and just as you close your eyes, you hear it turn on again. You know for an absolute fact you just closed it. So who or what opened it? That immediate, chilling realization that you are not alone. Well, that's exactly the kind of terror we're breaking down today. Act 1. The Dark Highway. A grueling mountain trip leads to a chilling encounter at the FWO monument. So, going back to May 2016, a 23-year-old software engineer named Faizan and his more experienced friend, Sheryar, decided to take a motorbike trip from Lahore to Skardu. Now, despite clear warnings from local residents to avoid traveling at night, they pushed forward into the dark anyway. Let's just look at how severe physical exhaustion completely set the stage for terror here. Day 1 was plagued by dust and a 3-hour delay on a heavily constructed, unpaved route to Chilas. Days 2 and 3, well, they involved being turned back by the army at Chilimchauki due to severe snowstorms, and then a completely failed attempt to cross the Diosai Plains. But day 4 was literally the breaking point. Their bike suffered a punctured tire in a landslide zone, and to make matters worse, their repair kit was totally expired. They ended up having to load their bike onto a 22-wheeler truck, balancing it by hand while standing on top of massive marble blocks with a deadly drop right below them. By the time they reached the Skardu road on night 4, they still had 179 kilometers to go, and they were utterly, completely drained. And then, a simple mechanical failure instantly turned a bad situation into a total nightmare. They were completely alone on the Skardu road. There was this overwhelming, dead silence, broken only by the roaring of the Indus River in the deep gorge way below them. Then, the bike's electrical system started acting up. Every single time Sheryar hit the brakes, the headlights would dim and flicker. Whenever they hit a sharp mountain turn and he brakes, they were plunged into absolute pitch-black darkness, entirely unable to see the deadly drop just feet away. On one of these sharp turns, as Sheryar let off the brake, the headlights flooded back on, illuminating a white monument built by the Frontier Works organization right by the side of the road. But sitting on the steps of this bright white monument was a completely light-absorbing entity. It was sitting on its knees, its head bowed down. The high beams of the motorcycle were shining directly onto it, and the white stone around it glowed, but this figure remained completely, unnaturally black. It didn't reflect a single photon of light. They sped past in absolute terror, loudly reciting prayers, both having just witnessed the exact same impossible shadow. Act 2. The Silent Jungle. An unnatural silence on the Islamabad-Lahore route. This takes us back to 2019 on a dark, densely wooded route near Islamabad. A young man named Ehtisham and his cousin Musa were riding their bikes back from Naran to Lahore, speeding ahead of their main group. Suddenly, their bike broke down, and they were engulfed by a sudden, terrifying silence. The wind just stopped. There was no rustling of leaves. The sounds of insects and animals completely ceased to exist. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the terrifying visual contrast that happened next. Stranded in the dark, they saw a figure emerging from the shadows. At first, they were super relieved. They expected a local approaching to help them. The figure was actually crying like a human. But as it stepped closer, the reality hit them. It was a pitch-black entity, and as Ehtisham looked down, he realized the figure wasn't walking on human feet. It was walking on the hooves of a bull. That sheer visual alone sent them sprinting into the jungle to hide behind some bushes. So they are hiding in the brush, hearts absolutely pounding, breath held, and then a booming, incredibly heavy voice echoes through the trees telling them, "You made a mistake coming here. I will eat your meat." I mean, can you imagine the sheer panic of that moment? They couldn't move, they couldn't breathe, just waiting there in the pitch black as this entity actively searched for them in the dark. When their cousins finally arrived on the other bikes, a barrage of supernatural phenomena completely overwhelmed the whole group. The arriving cousins saw a shadow as tall as a utility pole just staring at them from the road. While hiding, the group heard the distinct sounds of dirt being violently dug up, accompanied by unnatural mocking laughter. At one point,
Etisham looked up to see a black entity perched high on a tree branch, sitting exactly like a cat, just growling softly. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, invisible forces began repeatedly hurling heavy rocks at their abandoned motorcycle.
The resolution to all this chaos was actually rooted deeply in their cultural context. One of the cousins suggested that these entities cannot stay where the Azan, the Islamic call to prayer, is recited. So sitting in the pitch black, terrified out of their minds, they began to recite the call to prayer. And the moment they finished, the rock throwing stopped, the laughter ceased, that heavy, oppressive silence lifted, and they were finally left alone to wait out the long, terrifying hours until dawn.
Act 3. The Unseen Protector. A casual insult on Chandrat leads to an unexpected supernatural attachment. This next narrative comes from Umair, an expat who experienced a really complex haunting that followed a clear cause and effect chain. It started with a casual insult toward unseen entities on Chandrat, which is the eve of Eid. Standing near a newly built market in the Shakargar and Sialkot region, Umair, feeling fearless, verbally disrespected local rumors of jinns right then and there. Shortly after, it led to a bizarre, otherworldly encounter at a roadside food stall on the way to Sialkot Airport. Then, it escalated at home into agonizing sleep paralysis featuring a heavy female entity. Finally, it required serious intervention from his father, a spiritual healer who actually had an 1,800-year-old jinn companion of his own, who diagnosed the issue and prescribed a 41-day taweez, which is a protective amulet.
I really want to focus on step 2 of that chain for a moment, and this number right here, 18. On the way to the airport late at night, Umair stopped at a brightly lit roadside tandoor. He ordered bread from 3 men working there. The man instantly handed him a pre-packed bag, saying there were exactly 18 rotis inside. Umair paid them with a 500 rupee note, which they initially refused, but he just left it anyway. When he got back to the car, his friends were totally baffled. They hadn't seen a food stall at all, just Umair walking into the pitch-black darkness and returning with incredibly delicious bread. Actually, scratch that. The ultimate kicker is what happened next. The very next day, that exact same 500 rupee note was sitting right back inside Umair's pocket. No way, right?
Once Umair returned home, the haunting became intimately invasive. He began hearing constant, unintelligible whispers in his room. Then came the sleep paralysis, an agonizing, suffocating weight right on his chest. He would open his eyes to find a female entity, strangely beautiful but radiating a terrifying negative energy, just staring at him silently in the dark. He brushed it off as hallucinations, until one night his younger brother stormed into his room complaining about the loud whispers and voices. That's when Umair knew for sure it was entirely real. When Umair's father investigated, he revealed a massive twist. The jinns Umair had insulted had actually sent a group to torment him, but because Umair was deeply devout and prayed 5 times a day, they couldn't truly harm him. Instead, a female jinn from the group had become infatuated with him and acted as his unseen protector. She was the one who manifested the ghost tandoor to feed him. After wearing his father's protective amulet for 41 days, Umair went to a canal at night to dispose of it in the water, exactly as instructed. As the amulet sank, he heard a heartbreaking, soft whisper right in his ear. "Please don't do this. I will just stay with you, won't say anything." He never heard from her again.
Conclusion. Rules of the road. How to survive Pakistan's most isolated highways. So, the crucial point is shifting to the practical takeaways offered by the sources to tie this whole anthology together.
So what do all these encounters actually teach us? Well, here is exactly why this matters for your own safety, especially when civilization is sparse and help is literally hours away. First, never travel deserted mountain roads alone at night. The isolation is profound, and the risks, both natural and supernatural, just multiply in the dark. Second, always carry proper safety gear and check that your puncture kits are actually valid. Remember, expired tools are what left Fazan stranded. Third, avoid unknown shortcuts in the dark just to save a little time. And finally, maintain respect for the unseen. Don't casually insult what you don't understand, because as Umair learned, words spoken into the dark might just be heard.
We leave you with this final thought to consider. We've seen exhaustion, isolation, and fear play massive roles in these stories. But we've also seen shared sightings, physical rocks being thrown, and returned money. So, are these encounters merely the terrifying tricks of exhausted minds pushed to their absolute limits on dangerous roads? Or are they genuine proof that when the sun goes down and the noise of civilization fades, we truly share our world with unseen entities? Thank you so much for exploring these source files with us today. Keep learning, and hey, stay safe on the road.